What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Spicy Adventures. Today marks 10 years of writing for me. Quite a big accomplishment, I would say, and something I'm very, very proud of. I never thought I'd be writing this long, but I wanted to make a video about it and talk about some of my experiences, why I started writing, um, why I continue writing, and um, what some of my plans might be in the future here. So yeah, I have some notes here because there's quite a bit of stuff to talk about. Um, like my intro, how did it all begin, right? So I was going through a divorce in my life, um, and my uncle heard about it and decided to make a trip down from Minnesota to California to check up on me and see how I was doing. He had dual residency in Minnesota and in California, so he had a ranch up in the hills, and he like way up in the Hayfork area, and he decided to give me a call and just see how I was doing, and offer me a job and a chance to kind of get my mind off of things. So he took me up there for a month, and I was just doing some like hard manual labor on his ranch, digging trenches and building fences and yeah, just all kind of dirty work, right? Up in this big old ranch that he had. And my first day up there, went into his garage, opened it, and I saw he had a few bikes in there, a few motorcycles, right? I was, and my uncle was, in his 50s at this time, so I was impressed. I was like, "Damn, uncle." I was like, "You still ride?" And I was 37 at this time, right? And he was like, "Yeah, I still ride." And these were track bikes, right? They weren't street bikes. And I was like, "Man, you still ride track?" And he goes, "Yeah, I still ride track." And I was like, "Wow, that's impressive." And he had asked me, um, "Have I ever wanted to ride?" And I said, "Yeah, of course I wanted to ride. I just, never got around to it and never felt serious enough about it to actually start." So, yeah, he remembered that, and once I was done working with him up in the hills, um, about a month and a half later, he gives me a call as he's coming into town. Remember, I'm originally from Fresno, so he was coming into town, and he called me and was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was like, "Nothing." He was like, "Hey, go with me to my friend's house because he owes me some money, so I just want to go pick it up, and if you're bored, you can roll with me." I was like, "All right, cool." So he came and picked me up. We drove over to his friend's house, and I see his friend wheeling out this CBR 250R, a 2013 Repsol edition. And so I get out of the truck, and I'm helping his buddy like load the bike up. His buddy goes inside, and he grabs the title and he starts to sign it over to my uncle. And my uncle tells him, "Wait, wait, wait. Sign it to my nephew." Right? I looked at my uncle and I was like, "Nah." I was like, "Nah, Unc, you can't give me this bike. Like, he owes you." And my uncle was like, "Don't worry about it." He was like, "You always wanted to ride, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did." I go, "But not like this." He goes, "No, no." He goes, "Just take the bike. He goes, if you sell it, give me the money." He's like, "But here's your chance. You might as well learn to ride right now." So I was like, "Damn, are you for real?" He was like, "Yeah, I'm for real." It's like, why don't you do this, right? I was like, "Oh, all right." And I was like, my mom's gonna be pissed, right? And he was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I know your family's gonna be mad." He goes, "But I'm your mom's younger brother. What's she gonna say?" It was my uncle. It was my mom's younger brother. So yeah, so we took it to my house. We unloaded it, and my mom was like, "What the hell is that?" And my uncle was like, "It's it's Ben's new bike." Right? She was like, "I don't like it," but there was nothing she could do really. So I started riding it up and down the street a little bit. Try to get a feel for it. My uncle was like, "Come on, jump on it. Let's see how it goes." And I was so scared in the beginning because I had I'd ridden bicycles, but never a motorcycle before. So, I was really scared to pick my feet up and stuff. And he was telling me, just pick your feet up, just go. And, I eventually kind of started going around a little bit on it. Um, but I knew I needed to get a lot more comfortable, and there was a lot more to learn. So thank you to my uncle for giving me that opportunity. Um, yeah, and then I remembered that one of my old coworkers used to ride, and him and I were really good friends. So, and he was still riding at this time, so I gave him a call. I was like, "Yo, Chris, why don't you come help me out? Like, I just picked up this bike. I could use some pointers from you." So he was like, "Yeah, sure, I'm down." So he came down from the Reedley area, Reedley, Dinuba area, right? And he came up, and he rode. We picked out a parking lot not too far from my house. I drove my truck, and he rode the motorcycle to the little parking lot. And he gave me a bunch of pointers. Well, before this, I went and bought a little bit of gear, a jacket, some gloves, and a helmet, right? Like the basics, right? Just to be able to get by. And we went to this parking lot, and Chris showed me, basic maneuvers, clutch work, shifting, right? Turning the bike. But I wasn't really understanding how the bike was turning yet. Like, I didn't know what counter steering was or nothing. And Chris didn't really explain it to me either, I mean, it takes a certain personality to be able to, like, teach somebody correctly, right? And Chris was just kind of, letting me figure it out. And, at those crawl speeds, like, it's fine. Like, you can figure it out at, like, crawl speeds, Um, so, yeah, but he got me a little bit more comfortable on the bike with picking my feet up, right? Um, Clutch release, shifting, stuff like that, braking. So then I felt a little more confident. Went and got my permit. Started riding around, like, the neighborhood a little bit more often. Practicing here and there, right? And then once I got the permit, I definitely started riding a little bit more after I got off of work. I wasn't confident enough yet to, like, ride to work and stuff. At least not for the first few days, right? And then I decided, I think it was about maybe 4 or 5 days into it when I decided the first time to ride to work, and I took nothing but small streets, back roads to get all the way to work. And, like, it felt unbelievable, right? Like, it felt so cool. And I remember I was riding along this little road, and the sun was beaming this way, and I could see my shadow on the asphalt. And I thought that was really cool to see myself for the first time in a silhouette on a motorcycle. And then that gave me, like, one of the biggest smiles ever. And I said, whoa, like, that's really me. Like, I'm finally doing it, right? I'm finally on two wheels. It's been a long time, and something I never thought I'd actually really do, but here I was actually doing it. But I was recognizing that I was having trouble actually controlling the motorcycle, especially, like, in a turn, right? Trying to get the bike to lean over, I didn't know what I was doing, because every time I would turn the handlebars, like, the bike wouldn't respond the way I wanted it to, because I didn't understand what was happening. So then I had a different outlook. I was like, man, I really got to learn this. I got to get the skills, because I've always been a motorsports enthusiast, right, when it comes to cars. And I felt the same way about being on two wheels, right? Like, I wanted to be technically sound. I wanted to be able to hit the racetrack. I wanted to be able to ride in the hills. I wanted to be able to navigate traffic with full confidence. So I was like, I gotta find the right people. Yeah, and find, like, the right knowledge, right, to get me going the right way. Yeah, so here I am on this 2013 Honda CBR 250R, right, the Repsol edition. It was cool because it was a Repsol edition, so I was pretty stoked, right? I knew about Repsol Honda. I watched a little bit of MotoGP and World Superbike and stuff like that. I've always watched the racing, but never like rode, right? So I started reading up on like how to control a motorcycle, and they started talking about counter steering, and I was like, what is counter steering? So I started reading up on it, and I was like, no way. So I was like, well, let's go try it. So I jumped on the bike. I went to this little back road, like this little industrial area that wasn't too far from my house. I started practicing counter steering, right? Like if you want to turn left, like you gotta turn right, right? So I started doing that, and it was working, like at speed, right? I was cruising on second gear at like 30 miles an hour, and you push the handlebar left, and the bike turns left. You push the handlebar left, the wheel turns right, and the bike turns left. And you're like, whoa, like that's counter steering. Like it actually friggin' works, right? That's the way to turn. So I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. So I started practicing a lot all the time, every single day, just on counter steering, making the bike lean, getting used to that feeling of the bike leaning over. So then I started feeling pretty confident, and I went like on my first solo ride like a few days after that practicing. We went on this little old mountain back road um, in the Fresno area, and felt pretty good. You know, it felt pretty good. I felt very accomplished when I got to my destination, and then I came back, which which was a pretty far ride, right? And but it was nice to just kind of go at my pace, not have anybody with me, just kind of just go at it and just go nice and easy. Um, and I started feeling like I understood what the bike could do a little bit more, and my own skills, right? So then I invited my buddy Chris. I was like, "Yo, why don't you come ride with me?" I was like, I'm starting to understand like how to control the bike a lot better. Like, you know, let's go for a ride and see what happens. So we went back on the same road. The road was called Trimmer Springs. Went on to Trimmer Springs again, and like I'm not trying to brag, but like I dusted him, like I was gone, right? And he was like, "Holy crap, how'd you get so fast, so quick?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. I'm just like applying skills, right?" I told him like I just learned about counter steering and and what the bike is supposed to do, and so I just started kind of doing it. But I realized that I needed to still get better, like at riding. Like I knew I was still so new at it, and I didn't want to learn the wrong way. I knew that the probability of crashing is very high, right? So I started looking around Facebook groups, and I started finding some groups to join, right? Fresno Squids was one of them, and MPX was another group that I joined on Facebook because because one of my nephews was aware of the MPX guys. They're a local Hmong group of motorcycle riders that they actually race with AFM, and these are some of my trophies here as well. So it was great that my nephew pointed me into that area of expertise from these guys to really get to learn. And they told me I gotta go get my M1, right? So I told them, yeah, I told her I've been practicing at the DMV to get my M1. I knew I had the patience and the skill to learn on my own because I wasn't 27, right? I was 37. So I was quite a bit more patient about my life now and my choices. So I didn't want to take the MSF course and just learn on my own. I went to the DMV like every single night for like, I think I did it like 9 or 10 days straight of just practicing on that little circuit at the DMV, right? And I think I was ready by about the fifth or sixth day, but I kept practicing. I made a friend out there too, so we went and we met there every single night, and we practiced every single night. We rode each other's bikes. He had a Ninja 300, so we both jumped on each other's bikes and got to practice. Honestly, his bike was a lot easier to ride, the Ninja 300, compared to the CBR 250. It was a much easier bike to ride. It really was. It was lower to the ground, like my feet could touch the ground compared to the CBR 250R. I had a little bit more power, a little bit more punch, right? And it was just a nicer overall bike to ride. But I'm very thankful for the CBR 250R, though it taught me a lot. Yeah, and then um, passed the M1 test, my first shot. Um, and I was super stoked after that. I was like, okay, now I'm ready, right? Now I'm ready to actually like ride. So And then I finally met up with the MPX guys after chatting with them here and there. And because I was thinking about, I wanted more experience on different types of bikes, right? Because I didn't know what what size bike I really wanted. I was very thankful for the 250R, but I mean the thing topped out at like 80 miles an hour on the freeway. It wasn't very fast. It took me a while to jump on the freeway though, so this bike kind of gradually got me onto the freeway. I remember the first time I rode it on the freeway was late at night, because I was planning on riding to work, taking the freeway instead of taking the back roads all the time. So I waited till there was like no traffic. I think it was like 10 or 11 o'clock at night, a lot less traffic. So I rode the bike all the way to work and rode it all the way back on the freeway. And I said, oh, that wasn't too bad, because at that point I was really comfortable doing about 45, 50 miles an hour. And I was just like, well, I don't know if I'm ready to go like 65, 70, right? But once I did, I was like, oh, it's not too bad. Like it feels okay. It feels a little like scary at first, because like you can see the asphalt and everything like going by you so fast. Like you can't help but keep looking down, right? But eventually you get over it and you start looking up. But yeah, and then met the MPX guys, right? And they felt I was coming about it the right way. I felt like I was coming about it the right way as well, because I was asking around like about for people's experience and about their knowledge and what they could do to help me, and if I could ride some different motorcycles. So the MPX guys brought out a few bikes for me to ride, and I think it was like there was like a Ninja 300, and there was like a Yamaha R3 or something, and there was like a Ninja ZX10, right? So I was like, whoa, like super extremes, right? So me being super curious, I was like, well, let me jump on the leader bike, see what happens, right? So I jumped on my buddy Cody's ZX10, and I was like, wow, that bike. I was like, because I was thinking about getting a 600, right, a 5 or a 600cc bike, somewhere around there. And when I jumped on the 1 liter bike, I was like, why the hell would I want a 600 when these 1000 is so badass? But then I started thinking, no, that's not right. Like I shouldn't do that, because um, that's not the right way to go about it, And I was like, I don't need a liter bike. Again, my sensibility now being more mature um, started coming into play. So yeah, so then I decided, okay, yeah, I'm gonna look for a 600. So I said I need to narrow it down. So I narrowed it down to 2 bikes, because in the beginning everybody wants a sport bike, right? Because well, most everybody wants a sport bike because they're the coolest bikes. Honest to God, they really are the coolest bikes. When you're first learning to ride, because the sounds they make, the way they look, the way they perform, like that's what you want. And plus me too, like I was still, like I said, I'm a very motorsport enthusiast guy. Watched a lot of MotoGP, Formula One, stuff like that. I did a lot of autocrossing and track events in my car. So I wanted something sporty, right? So I had narrowed it down to a CBR 600RR because I was already in the CBR family, or I wanted the Yamaha R6. And I was like, well, whichever one I find first is the one I'm going to get at the price point I want. And I didn't want to spend more than like $4,000, right? So I was luckily, I picked out a handful of bikes that were all up north from Fresno, the Sacramento Bay Area, stuff like that. So my buddy Chris went with me. We took my truck, went up to the Bay Area, checked out a couple of bikes. Didn't really like them. They weren't very clean. They were kind of beat up looking. And then it was the last bike I decided to look at. It was in Sacramento on the way back down, right? I was like, well, let's talk to the Sacramento guy. He's actually talking to me quite a bit. And he says that, the bike's really clean, even though it was kind of high mileage. He said it was very clean, all original. So we're gonna go look at it, and it was really clean. Like, and he wanted like $3,400 for it, right? And it was a 2008 CBR 600RR graffiti edition. So I loved the graphics on it, the matte black. I mean, the bike was all matte black with like, their graffiti edition graphics. Fell in love with it, and I was like, whoa, this is a really nice bike for even. And he had, he did new chain and sprockets and oil change and all that stuff, right? So it was like ready to go. New tires on it. The only thing was like one of the brake discs was a little bit warped, he told me. So he said I would want to switch that out, and you could feel it when you brake. Like you could feel a little bit of like pulsing in the brake lever. But we threw it on my truck, and Oh, and it hadn't been registered. So then the guy felt bad about it, and he gave me $200 back. So I only got it for $3,200. I was like, whoa. I was like, thanks, man. He was like, yeah, dude. He's like, I felt bad for not registering it, and he's like, so here's $200, so you can register it. So that was really cool of him. Brought it home, registered it under my name, started riding it. The MPX guys, I rode it over to the MPX guys, little clubhouse we called it, right? Went over there and they were like, oh yeah, heck yeah. And then one of the MPX guys, he's a mechanic, so he helped me fix the bike. We ordered the brake disc, got it changed. Went on my first ride with them. Um, first group ride, pretty big group ride, and we ended up going to like the Bass Lake area. And that was really fun doing my first big group ride, right? We had a few guys from Sacramento come down as well to join us, so that was really cool. And this is the point where things started really changing for me, because this is the first time that a lot of the MPX guys got to actually see me ride, and they really liked what I was doing, but they had a lot of critique from me as well, which was great because that's what I wanted, right? So they started telling me about my feet position, they started telling me about the way I sit, they started telling me about my hand and arm position, what it should be like, how I should be more relaxed on the bike instead of so tense, and all this stuff, right? But then they said something that really mattered to me. They said, take it from us, guys we've been riding for a long time. They're like, we learned the hard way. We were crashing all the time at the racetrack and on the street because we didn't know any better. They're like, until we got coaching, right? So they went to California Superbike School down in LA. And they say they did that, and that changed them forever. The way that they ride, the way that they see riding. They hardly ever rode on the street anymore. They mostly rode track. And I was like, oh wow, like that's really cool. So that was my next big thing, right? Was to be able to get some coaching while still experiencing the road, because I loved riding on the street. It was so much fun. I had so many adventures on the CBR 600RR, especially with some of the fellows Fresno Squid guys I made really good friends with. There was more than a handful of us that rode all together all the time for Fresno Squids, and I rode with the MPX guys. I wasn't really just dedicated to riding with like one type of people, one type of rider, right? Like I wanted to ride with a lot of different types of riders so I could improve my skills and stuff of that nature. But yeah, and talking to the MPX guys, they kept telling me about getting a coach. So eventually I started looking around and I found Coach Kanakaya with Superbike Coach up in the Stockton area on his little 99 racetrack. My buddy Johnny, who rode with MPX as well, decided to do the class with me because we were both very, very adamant about learning the skills. So yeah, so off came our journey to Superbike Coach, right? And man, I can't tell you how much that changed my riding philosophy, and how much I thought I knew really went out the window. And going into that class, like you have to go in with your ego in check, right? As much as you think you know, or as much as people have taught you, like you go in with a blank slate, you be a sponge and you absorb everything that these coaches have to tell you. Well, and in this case, it's Coach Kanakaya all by himself. And I thought that was very impressive because it's just him. He's teaching the entire class, just him. And he makes time to work with you one-on-one, especially if you're willing to work and willing to listen to him. Now, if you go in at a hothead and you think that you already know everything, he's gonna kind of blow you off because he's gonna be like, whatever, dude, like you don't want to listen to me. And he made a really good point. One of his favorite lines, one of my favorite lines that he said when he was giving his spiel about his class and about putting our egos in check, right, was, if you came into this class thinking that you're going to be a MotoGP racer, he's like, you're in the wrong class, right? He's like, if you came into this class, he's like, but if you came into this class thinking that you know everything, also, why aren't you already world champion, right? That's the two lines that really stuck to me. He was like, I'm here to teach you skills that'll save your life, whether it's on the street or on the track. He's like, that's my main goal. And I thought that was really genuine, right? Super genuine. He was there to make you a better rider. He didn't care about anything else but making you a better rider. And I remember the first time he threw us on his little kart track. Johnny and I were pretty quick. We're flying around everybody. He threw us in C group, because we didn't have many, we only had a few months of riding. Threw us in C group, and we were like, Johnny and I were pretty quick, so we were flying laps around people. And he comes up to me. Coach is chasing us around on the track. Coach is on the track with you, right? First he's observing you, and then he jumps on the track and starts chasing you around. Coach comes up on me, follows me for a little bit, pulls off the track, stops me in a safe area off the track, slaps me in the head of my back, slaps me in the back of my helmet. He goes, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "You're fast." He goes, "But your lines are terrible." He's like, "You miss almost every apex." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm having trouble finding the tip in." And he goes, "Shut up." He goes, "Slow down." He was like, "I don't care that you're fast." He goes, "Slow down. Where's your ideal line? Hit the apex." And I was like, "Okay." And that's when everything started to click a little bit. And I was like, yes, it's not about being fast, because I was always trying to lean the bike over, right? I thought I could impress him by how much lean angle I could show him, right? Because that's where my mindset was at that time. Until I started following him. He got in front of me and he kind of tapped on his butt and he made me follow him. And then I followed him and I said, whoa, his line's really interesting, because he's up, over, right? He's very deliberate with his moves, and he wasn't like swerving all over the place. I'm like angling out so I can angle in, right? He doesn't do stuff like that. He was just like straight point shoot, lean the bike over, get it back up on the fat part of the tire, shoot out of the corner. I was like, whoa, that's really impressive, right? And then he made us draw our ideal line around the track, and then he said all of our lines suck, which he was right, and he drew his ideal line, and he told us why he did certain things on the track, and he wanted us to go out and mimic it. And now he said, now that you know my ideal line, he goes, I want you guys to try it. And when I tried it, I said, oh my gosh, it made so much of a difference. I could brake harder, I could accelerate harder. When you're leaned over on the bike, like you're not leaned over that long anymore. I was always leaned over really long, because I was doing all of these like S turns, right, and stuff, when I didn't need to. There'd be like a straightaway and I'd be swinging the bike so I could get the bike lean angle, and he made me stop doing that, which was great, and he taught me how to ride correctly. So Superbike coach, Coach Kanakaya, thank you so much for those pointers. We did your entire course back then, and graduated your class. Coach inspired me so much, and so did the MPX guys, that I started doing track days, right? And after learning on that kart track, jumping onto a big track, because that kart track was less than a mile, right? And very narrow. You're always on the side of the tire, pretty much, like almost, you're constantly paying attention to every corner. There's not really a straightaway. So, yeah, your focus is on point. So the first time you jump on a big track, the big track seems slow compared to it, because that intense training on that small course teaches you way more skills than you ever learned jumping on a big track. I'm serious. Jumping on a big track, yeah, it's fast and it's fun, right? But it is scary as hell too if you do not have the skill. If I had jumped on a big track before I had any coaching, I would have been scared to death. I probably would have went down, like, first day, right? First day at the track. Maybe in first session, I probably would have even crashed, right? But learning the skills from coach, understanding trail braking, understanding body position, understanding setting up the bike, understanding ideal lines, right? All that stuff helped out immensely on jumping on. And my first big track that I went on was Thunder Hill, right? And even then, I wasn't quite ready for Thunder Hill yet, because I wasn't completely done with coach's course yet. And the MPX guys told me, hey, you shouldn't do Thunder Hill yet, because you're only halfway through the class. And I was like, no, I got it, right? And then of course what happens? I crash, right? So the MPX guys were right again. They were like, see, we told you, right? I was like, yeah, you're right, I should have listened. I finished coach's course, and then what I count as my real first track day is Buttonwillow after I finished coach's class. And when I jumped on Buttonwillow, it felt so smooth and easy because I had the skill, I had the repetition, I knew what I was doing now, right? Um, and I still had a lot to build on, but there was a lot to be proud of. Um, Jumping on Buttonwillow for my first track event there, they threw me in a C class, right? Because I've never really been on track before, besides that, Thunder Hill. And then the MPX guys were timing me around the course because they're racers and that's what they do, right? So they're timing me around this course, and they're like, you know what? Like, you're pretty fast for your first time at Buttonwillow. I was like, am I? They're like, yeah. They're like, you're running like 2 minutes 12 seconds, right, for a rookie, like somebody for the first time on a 600cc bike who's never seen the course before. And they said their first time out there, they were like in the 220s, right, 220, 225s. So they were like, you're not doing too bad, right? They're like, you're because Buttonwillow at this time, and I don't know if it's still like this or not, but Buttonwillow, A group, the way that they grouped it was anything 2 minutes 10 seconds and under was A class, right? 2 minutes 10 seconds to 2 minutes 20 seconds was B group. Then 2 minutes and 20 seconds and over was C group. So the fact that my first time jumping on Buttonwillow on my all stock CBR 600 RR, running 2 minutes and 12 seconds roughly, they're like, you're right on the back end of the A class. Like that's pretty good. That's very impressive. They said, don't let it get to your head. They go, but that's how much coach mattered to you. Like that's how much he taught you, and look how much it's translated over, right? So I was pretty stoked after that, and then we started doing more and more track days. And then I think I finally got to ride my uncle's track prepped CBR 600 RR. I was able to knock off 2 more seconds and run a 2 minute and 10 second on my next track day. So that was really exciting. And then I was running in B group that time instead of C group. So, less traffic in B group, right, than C group. So that was really fun. The first few track events, but I kept wanting to race, right, because I had been to a few AFM races with the MPX guys. Because like I said, a few of the MPX guys actually club raced with AFM. And watching them do it, I wanted to challenge myself, and I was like, I need to get there. I want to get there, right? So one of the race weekends I was there, we ended up finding one of our, race buddies, and he was selling a Ninja 250 fully prepped race bike. And I said, I want it. And he was only selling for like $1,000, right? Fully race prepped, ready to go, tuned and everything. And I was like, wow, this is freaking awesome. So bought it with the quickness, repainted it like this orange color with blue wheels. Like it was a radical color. I wanted 2 contrasting colors. That was my style back then. And it's funny that I picked orange because of what I ride now, my KTMs, right? So that was really cool. And with that Ninja 250, I was ready to go, right? And I jumped into the opener of the AFM weekend. Took the license course. Did like the classroom first, right? And then from the classroom you jump onto the track, and then they give you a pass or a fail, because they tell you, and then they want you to follow, and then they tell you, and then they want you to follow, and they kind of see what you're doing on the track, see if you can pass safely, see if you can let other people pass you safely, see if you're not erratic, right? And I had all kind of stuff happen to me on my first lap. I remember my first dip into the corner, there was a guy low sides right in front of me, and I ended up being able to cut right under him as he low sides. Actually, right when I first jumped on the track, I didn't let my bike warm up enough because it was carbureted, so I couldn't get full throttle. So I put my hand up to let people know I was having trouble on my bike until it warmed up. And once she warmed up, I was able to finally give it full throttle and go. And then after a first full lap, came back around the track again. A guy low sides in front of me, right? And I'm able to cut under him and keep my composure and go around them, right? And remember, this is just time trials. Like they're not actually racing. This is just kind of like practice, right? But the practice is also like you're gridding, right? That's how like AFM runs it. You're also getting timed on your practice events, and that's how they kind of grid you, right? But yeah, there was so much action happening, and the guys were really proud of me, right? The instructors. When we pulled off the track, the instructor gave me a big time thumbs up, gave me a pat on the back. It was like, man, there was all kind of stuff happening out there, and you kept your cool. And I was like, yeah, like I just kept my concentration, my focus, just wanted to go. So yeah, so they were proud of me, and they gave me my race license after that. They gave me my race number after that, which was 710. If you don't know anything about like club racing, the way that AFM club racing works is when you first join, you get a yellow plate, and you're in the high numbers, right? Like in the 700s, right? Or 800s or whatever the case may be, because you're brand new. So I had one of the numbers available was 710, so I ended up picking that number 710 with the yellow plate. I ended up joining the novice 250 class, and these are some of my trophies from the class. Right here's a couple looks at them, right? A couple first, seconds, and thirds, and this is and I raced the whole season. I ended up finishing second place overall. Here, if you can see it, yeah, second place overall in the championship back in 2018. Yeah, that was so much fun to do. Expensive, expensive, and that's why I only raced for 1 year, right? Because I knew I couldn't keep that up without any sponsors or anything. And plus, I wasn't a young buck anymore. I was 37, 38 years old now. There was, I didn't have, I didn't have the time, right, to be able to do that anymore. But I was very, very thankful to be able to do that. And the reason why I went with the 250 Ninja race bike was because of those lap times I was telling you about earlier, right? So when I was on the CBR 600RR doing 2 minutes 10 seconds, I go out to the AFM races and I'm watching the guys on the 600s and they're doing like 1 minute 50 and under, right? I'm like, whoa, there's no way I can keep up with those guys. They're like 20 seconds faster than me. So that's when I knew I had to get a small bike, right? Something that I could grow with. And I wanted to be competitive. That was the thing. I didn't want to be a back marker, because that's the worst feeling ever, is when you're a back marker, right? And one of the best outcomes about racing with the Ninja 250 was you could race in higher classes, right? Because your bike was a lower CC, so they didn't care. So one time my buddy from MPX, he told me to race the 350 Superbike class with him, because he was on Ninja 250 as well. He was like, hey, jump in this class with me. And I was like, all right, yeah, fuck it, let's go, let's do it, right? And that's when it really pushed me. And I was going around the track. I had a horrible launch. I kind of wheelied, and then I fell behind, but I just stuck my head down and I kept going and I kept going and I kept going. And the next thing I know, I was reeling in a rider, and it was my buddy on his Ninja 250. And I was like, no way, I'm catching him. And I know he's pretty quick on his Ninja 250. So I ended up catching him and passing him, and he let me go by. And he was like, what the heck? He just caught me in like 2 laps. And I started realizing something, that like if I could keep my head down and keep going, like I could carry a lot of momentum, because I was learning every lap. I was building, right? That's what they talk about in racing. Like when you're doing lap after lap after lap, it's called building. So I could really build something. And I realized I started passing some like 300cc bikes. Like I passed an RC390, I passed a few Yamaha R3s, right? Some Ninja 300s and stuff. I ended up going down later. I ended up colliding with somebody, unfortunately, because I tried to pass her on the inside, and she leaned right into me. She didn't know I was there, and yeah, and I went down. Luckily, she didn't, and thankfully she didn't. She didn't go down, but I went down unscathed, though I was fine. And the bike was fine too. I was able to ride the rest of the event. But yeah, and then when I came back to the pits, my team was all looking at me and they were laughing and smiling and clapping, and I was like, and I thought they were like making fun of me because I crashed. And they go, dude, look at your lap time. And I go, what? They go, look how fast you're going. And I was like, holy crap, 2 minutes and 13 seconds? And they're like, yeah, you were flying on that Ninja 250. Now imagine that. On my Ninja 250, I'm running 2 minutes, 13 seconds. On my CBR 600RR, I was running 2 minutes 12 seconds, right? And then on my uncle's CBR 600RR, I was running 2 minutes 10 seconds. I'm not that far off on Ninja 250, which has much less power. That Ninja 250 was dynoed at like 30 horsepower, right? And we all know CBR 600RRs have like well over 100 horsepower. So, you know, a bike with 3 times less power, I was able to do almost identical lap times. And that proves a lot, right? That it's about how you ride and your skills that really matter. I wish I could have kept racing. I really wish I could have. But like I said, it was just too expensive, just too time consuming. And I just decided just to do track events, right? Track days, and just keep riding the hills. Um, I was actually bikeless for a while back in like 2019, right? After I raced, I didn't feel like racing anymore. So like, and some of my friends kept bugging me about my Ninja 250 because they wanted a backup bike as a race bike, right? I said, sure, why don't you get, you know, you could buy it off me. So they bought it off me. I didn't have a bike for most of 2019, but my friends would let me ride their bikes. They would park them at my place, and they, you know, they would let me ride because they knew how much I still enjoyed riding. I thought I'd eventually get back on one, you know. So in 2020, I bought a brand new 2019 Honda CBR 650R, still in the Honda family, right? Because that was what was familiar to me, and I really enjoyed Hondas. Um, I rode that around for a little bit and really enjoyed it, but I felt like the bike was a little too heavy, you know. It had about, you know, 90 plus horsepower, but it weighed like 440 pounds, and I was like, it's a little heavy. And then when Aprilia had announced that they were coming out with the RS 660 in 2021, that's what I had my sights set on, right? So when the Aprilia came out, I sold my CBR 650R back to the dealer that I bought it from, and they gave me a fair price for it. You know, I bought it for like 8,900 or something, and I sold it to them a year later for like 7,700. So not terrible, right? And then yeah, so the Aprilia came out, and went and bought it, the RS 660. And I remember when I went to go look at it up in Sacramento area at Elk Grove Power Sports. I wanted to see all the colors, but they only had 2 black ones, right? And I wanted to see the acid gold, and I wanted to see the lava red because I really wanted the lava red one. But since, you know, they only had the black, and I was already there, I was like, you know what, I might as well just get a black one because like I didn't hate it. You know, it was great looking. Bought the black one. I had pneumonia at that time when I bought it. So my buddy came up and towed it home for me. So thanks to Huey, my buddy Huey. Big shout out to you, boy, for getting my first Aprilia home. Brought it home. Absolutely loved it. You know, started riding it around a little bit more once I started, you know, feeling better from the pneumonia. Remember, this is around COVID time too, you know, 2021, right? So, yeah, a lot of stuff was going on in the world, but luckily I was still able to ride. And then I ordered some parts um, from the dealer down in LA, right? And oh God, what are they called? Why am I drawing a blank right now? But they were in Glendale, right? They were in Glendale, California. I can't think of the name of the shop right now, but they had all 3 colors on the showroom floor when I got there. And that had always been, and one of my dreams that I've always had was to own the same bike twice, right? One for the street, one for the track, because I was still wanting to ride track very much at this time. So once I saw the lava red one in person, I had to have it. So I bought it. So I bought the lava red one down in Glendale, California, and they trailered it to my house, like, you know, a few days later. So now I had two. Now I had 2 RS 660s, I had a black one and a lava red one, and I was just in heaven, right? I loved it. And the black one was gonna be the track bike, and the lava red was gonna be the street bike because the lava red was the prettier one, right? I thought, in my eyes, anyway. So then, the black RS 660. I remember on New Year's Eve, I rode it down back to the dealer, and they did the first service for me, and they flipped it to a GP shift for me because that's the only way to ride on the track, you guys. GP shift. I'm sorry, standard shift on the racetrack, no good. I mean, you can get away with it on the street, but even on the street, I like GP shift. Um, but yeah, so I got a GP shifted, rode it back home. Man, awesome time. Yeah, ended up doing a few track days on the black RS 660. Um, and the lava red one, I think I put like 15 or 16,000 miles on it in a year before the insurance rates went crazy here in California. Then I ended up selling it because I couldn't afford the insurance on. Sorry about that, but yeah, I couldn't afford the insurance on both the bikes. It was just way too much, and a lot of the companies were pulling out of California, so I had no choice but to sell one of them, right? So I sold the lava red one because that one I owned outright. The black one I was financing, so it was easier to sell the lava red one. Sold that one. The black one I did, go down at Sonoma. My first time there, I put brand new tires on, and me just being too eager, didn't even do a full lap yet, and I tried to get on it too much, and slid out doing about 80 miles an hour. That sucked, but I got the bike all fixed back up, and yeah, it went to a whole new paint scheme. Right, it ended up being white and red. Loved it. I loved the custom paint scheme I had on it. Um, and then I moved from Fresno to here where I am now, the Bay Area, right, Santa Cruz Mountains, and I started realizing that, like, as much as I love the sport bike, I wanted to do something different. So that's when I got the KTM 390 Adventure, right, 2023 model, and I bought it slightly used. It only had like 85 miles on it when I bought it, so that was awesome. And they sold it for like $5,000, right? It was like super cheap. So I was like, heck yeah! I went and got that one, rode it, and my friend Jennifer took me up. I rode it back down from Santa Rosa, and yeah, that was awesome. And then I realized I wasn't riding the RS 660 that much anymore, and then I ended up selling it because I wasn't riding it, right? And plus, I wanted to get a new car because at this time I had a 2008 Honda Civic Si Coupe, and I wanted, I wanted the new Type R, right? So I ended up selling the R660, selling my Civic Si, and I ended up buying the FL5 Type R. And I was very happy for a while, just riding around with the KTM and my Civic Type R, because the Type R gave me my speed thrills now, and the KTM 390 Adventure gave me my adventures, right? I could go off road, I could go on road. It was kind of a chill, easy bike to get on. The speed had kind of been done now. Like, I wasn't really like on a motorcycle. I mean, like, I still like to go fast. Don't get me wrong, but like, it wasn't that important anymore. I wanted a more laid back approach, and the Type R was plenty fast for the corners. So I wasn't planning on buying anything, but this year, right, as you guys have seen in some of my videos, this year it was my 10-year anniversary, which is right now, today, down to the day, July 9th, right? So in February, I found the KTM 890 SMT, and I realized what I want to do is I want to do a lot more long distance travel. And not that the KTM 390 can't do it. It can, it's just not the best bike for it because it's kind of small, gets blown around by the wind, not enough electronics, right? Can't carry as much luggage on it. So I was like, I need to get something a little bit bigger. And the 890 SMT just really spoke to me compared to the other bikes, like as I stated on my Let's Ride video of my KTM 890. it was just the bike for me, right? And being familiar with the KTM platform, it was just the way to go. But yeah, being up here has really changed the way I look at riding. Um, for myself anyway. It's and I started to do it a little bit when I was in Fresno, like long road trips, right? But just in a day, right? Like I'm actually planning on doing like out of California now, and a few days on the road, camping out or sleeping at hotels or whatever the case may be, right? I've done it in my car plenty of times, but I need to start doing it on my motorcycle. So in August, I have a trip planned with my cousin and her husband. We're gonna go to Sturgis, and that's gonna be great because I can't wait to do that. It'll be my first time riding out of California. So if you guys have any tips about riding out of state, leave a comment below. Let me know. Thank you for joining this episode. I guess I'll end it here, right? So thanks for joining this episode. These 10 years of riding have really shaped me and molded me in a way I never thought it would, right? It's made me more patient about life. It's made me understand that learning a new skill really makes you feel complete as a person. And I'm always practicing these skills. Every time I jump on the motorcycle, I'm practicing something. I'm never just relying on my previous skills, right? I'm relying on them, but I'm also trying to do something new or practice something even better, right? Whether it's braking, whether it's cornering, whether it's a line choice, whether it's shift points, whether it's turn-ins, whether it's, leaning off the bike or getting more comfortable or whatever the case may be. There's so many things you can keep practicing on the bike, and I urge you guys to keep practicing on the motorcycles. One big thing that I have to say is if you're thinking about riding, you won't know that you love riding until the first time you really go down, like a serious crash, right? I'm not talking about just like a tip over in a parking lot or something. I'm talking about when you actually really crash. That's when you know. I've been down. I've been down at least 4 times on the street and at least 4 times on the track. And I'm still riding. Here's a little bit of, road rash right here, right? From my sleeve rolling up on me. That's when you know. That's when you'll know if the fear is gonna get you or not. The fear got me, but not enough to make me not want to stop riding, right? It just made me more determined to be better, right? Yeah, and be more cautious, right? Not to throw caution into the wind anymore, and just be better about it. Because I used to, try to drag me on the street and stuff like that, but now I don't do any of that stuff anymore. I'm here for the ride. I'm here for the enjoyment, and I love being able to teach what I've learned over the years to new people that I've met, or newer riders, or even existing riders. When they see me ride, a lot of them will say the same thing usually. Wow, you're really smooth, right? And it's because of all this practice, this 10 years of riding, and my outlook on it, right? It wasn't just to jump on a bike and just ride, right? Like I had aspirations, I had goals, and I feel like I've met pretty much every single one. And the ultimate goal was to be a good rider, right? And to be able to speak about it and talk to people about it. I'm not claiming to be an expert or anything, but I know enough to tell somebody who's doing something completely wrong to stop doing it, right? You know what I mean? So, yeah, take that for what it's worth. I hope to see you guys around riding up here in Santa Cruz Mountains, but be careful. There's been a lot of deaths up here lately, so I really want you guys to be careful. Cars and motorcycles, have been a lot of people crashing. And a lot of fatalities in the last few weeks here because summer, right? So people are itching to get out. I get it, but you guys gotta be smarter about being out here. You guys can't be crossing double yellows, coming track. You can't be hot dogging it. You can't be coming 80 miles an hour around corner. Come on, guys, slow it down. Be safe. Get home to your loved ones. Yeah, so that we can ride again. So I can see you guys again up here in the mountains, right? Thanks for joining this episode, and I hope I taught you guys something, or at least you learned a little bit about me. And yeah, on to more episodes. Next episode will probably be, the one where I start getting ready and taking off to Sturgis. So yeah, we'll see you guys then. Peace.